Welcome to this Endless Space 2 review. I'm your host, KTB. Housekeeping before we begin, you can hear this video at a more normal pace by playing it at 0.75 speed. I bought the Endless Space 2 Digital Deluxe Edition. I've played 20 plus hours. Because I'm lonely and have no friends, I've not reviewed the multiplayer aspect, although I do speculate that it's fun. This video is largely spoiler free. The video is 5 minutes or less because I don't care about ads. With all that done, let us begin. Endless Space 2 is a sci-fi strategy game largely in the 4X genre. It is a sequel to Endless Space and sees you take control of one of a number of different spacefaring civilizations and try to carve out your own empire amidst the stars. It features a ton of interesting and fun gameplay as lore, as well as some drawbacks. You'll hear me say it's like Civilization in space a lot, because it is, but more later. Endless Space 2 is turn-based on a large galaxy map where you build fleets, colonize worlds, research technologies, and conduct diplomacy. During warfare, there are battles that you can set the tactics for and then watch or auto-resolve, both in space and on land, but these battles are not played out in real time, just observed. First up, the visuals. Endless Space 2 is at its most different and strongest in the visual department. The game has a very polished and smooth user interface, with mouse movements, clean fonts, few start pop-ups or mouse over windows, and a limited amount of stats or options on screen at any one time. You can scroll down into the system level view, looking at each individual planet, or right out into the entire galaxy map. The visuals are beautiful, clean, and appealing. However, there are some drawbacks. The clean interface design leads to some gameplay issues, which we'll cover in a moment. Equally, as mentioned, the game lets you watch or auto-resolve battles, but not actually fight them, and the graphics on land battles in particular are simple to the point of being not particularly interesting. However, everywhere else the combination of 2D animations for cutscenes and mission pop-ups and 3D models for ships, planets, and other items is extremely well crafted. The style is consistent throughout and gives us a streamlined, almost app-style experience to the gamer. It would be nice to have some more variety in the interface, say moving from the clean and simple lines of a science or political faction to a more brutal design for a warrior or industrialist race, but the lack of variety isn't too damaging. The interface can sometimes confuse in that you cannot remember what certain screened options fall under or how to access some mechanics. This is remedied with practice. Second, because the interface is so clean, it is not always clear initially what is selectable option versus simple information. Again, learn with time, but perhaps could have been designed a little better. On models and animations, the models for ships you can create vary and are great to watch when they battle. However, when you commit to ground combat, instead of seeing the same sort of 3D models battling across a variety of landscapes, you're presented with a rather dull chess-style simulation of the planet's surface upon which battle occurs. It doesn't differ much visually from planet to planet, and it's clear the effort went into the space battles and fleets as well as planets, so no bad thing, but the difference between land and space is noticeable. On to sound and music. Endless Space 2 has a nice and occasionally beautiful ambient soundtrack on the galaxy map screen, which moves between states of peace, war, and tension as your game changes. Again, a little more variety in the soundtrack would have been nice here, so that the different races sound a little bit more distinct in ambience, as they do play very differently. There's one track in particular which reminds me of one of the old Xbox 360 games, Boom Boom Rocket soundtrack, Smooth Operator, which I loved, and thankfully it's present here. There are different tracks, and the races do sound different, but often not different enough, and so the militaristic United Empire theme sort of gets confused into the more progressive and passive races too. Good production values and quality mark the soundtrack out in the same vein as the interface, smooth and well finished, but not entirely memorable. Sound during battle is fairly generic, but impactful and fun nonetheless, and there is little voiceover outside major cinematics or events, which is the same, but again, not a killer problem. This leads us on to gameplay and the depths they're in. Endless Space 2 has a decent learning curve, and there are lots of the finer functions that make no sense at the outset, but which you slowly learn to master game after game. For the most part, the mechanics are fun, intuitive, and add great depth. Equally, each faction plays differently. You can still play your own way, but each has distinct advantages and disadvantages and drawbacks that are best played toward. However, occasionally they can be obscure and a little annoying. Each of the races have their own main story that you can play through, the grand narrative of your people. These pop up as missions that you can often choose how to complete, create this much production, learn this many technologies, conquer this many worlds, etc. Then there are the minor missions, dilemmas and choices that happen randomly that again you can decide how to approach. Then beneath that there are the goals, tasks and challenges that also pop up. Be the first to research this many space anomalies, etc. Aside from the main narrative, a lot of the dilemmas are the same and the challenges are also shared, so you'll find yourself approaching a lot of these repeatedly, albeit from different angles. With the random generation of galaxies of different size and complexity, plus the massive variety in species playstyles, there is tons of replayability in Endless Space 2. Add that to the DLC content packs, and if you like this universe, there's loads to do. Managing your expansion and economy is fairly simple. You colonize planets and systems that you discover, and the first to colonize a world in the system then owns it, and others must then either abandon or fight for that system to claim it. You build ships and shipyards around your system and can design blueprints yourself based on unlocked technologies or ask the game to create the best version for you. Initially, most ships are unavailable and most planets can't be colonized, so you need to unlock the tech to create certain types of world, ash, lava, savanna, and so on. You can then unlock tech to terraform planets into more hospitable or profitable environments once colonized, and also specialize both planets and systems. You can build structures and wonders in your systems, much like Civilization, and these confer bonuses, abilities, and other likes to your empire. If this sounds deep, it's because it is, and at first you'll miss the finer points, but don't worry, they do make sense over time. Managing your fleets and ships is initially a little more difficult and finicky, having to create fleets and then send them to places as a group and perform certain actions. I found this not exactly intuitive at first, but you learn quite quickly. Space fleet battles are fun to watch and work well, but you choosing tactics at the outset and watching them play out or auto-resolving. Land combat, however, is another matter. It is generally a bit dull to watch, and the combat over large worlds can take dozens of turns and get a bit dull over time. Picking apart a major empire can be really slow going, even when you have overwhelming power. This is particularly true in the late game when AI empires and yours span dozens of world-dependent systems. This is, of course, as it should be, but it's not always fun in the late game. On top of all this resource management, production, expansion, and combat, it's a nice little RPG system for heroes. These characters can either be assigned to governed systems and confer bonuses on them, or lead fleets and buff them during combat and exploration. Heroes are a cool feature, and it's fun to see them explore elite unit ranks and take up an ordinary system and turn it into an economic powerhouse, or a simple fleet into an armada of death. The interplay between economics wonders, heroes, fleet systems, diplomacy and warfare, and the politics with your own civilization can be a bit daunting at first. Having elections that unlock political laws, which are essentially bonuses for your faction on different systems, which you can then terraform and specialize whilst building utilities, is a bit overwhelming and makes time to master. The interface does a good job of hiding much of this, letting you find it and use it as you see fit, but then becomes annoying later on when you're more proficient and wish you could just simply jump into certain things and tweak them. So, deep with lots of replayability, but not necessarily without its frustrations. Endless Space 2 is an old game now, having released in 2012, so it's mostly available on sales and not full price. It is definitely worth buying for $20 or less, as you will get that many hours or more out of it. Thank you very much for your time. Please thumbs up and subscribe.